Hey, everybody, and welcome to yet another Building 61 show and tell. My name is Adam,
Hi, I'm Emily.
and we're back. It's yet another Tuesday evening. It's just going to be Emily and I on the show tonight, talking about some of the projects that we've been working on. And just before we dive into things, just a quick update. Just to remind everyone, we are now doing 3D printing as a service out of the makerspace. So if you have 3D files that you need printed, go ahead and go to building61.org, check out the events, and look for the 3D printing virtual guided access. That's going to let you sign up for a time slot where you can join one of us for 15 minutes to talk about your file. You'll have the opportunity to upload your file beforehand, and we can get this thing printed for you. We also have our Dimension 1300 ST, the sort of our advanced 3D printing is now online. That's quite a bit more expensive than our traditional Lulzbot 3D printing, but the quality of it is absolutely excellent. So we'll have some examples to show you probably at future show and tells now that we've got that running. Real quick though, I want to show something that I printed on the Lulzbot. So this is going to be sort of like a leader for a future episode. So I am doing something that I would almost never advise anyone to do, which is 3D printing boxes, because they always have problems, in my opinion. And this is a perfect example of that. Even with our new cases, they have kind of a curled edge on the bottom of this tray. So this is just a component tray that I'm going to be using for my desk that's behind me here, and I really wanted to see if the Lulzbot could pull this off, and I printed this exact same model on the new Dimension, and we'll take a look how that looks in a future episode, probably with some other parts.
It looks so close to beautiful. It's
It,
still very pretty.
it's very satisfying object. It's got some heft to it, and I honestly think this is probably like $7 in filament, which makes me really afraid of what I'm going to be paying for the one on the more advanced 3D printing. This is a very sort of simple box for the cost. Now, I would advise anyone who's planning on making boxes, laser cutting is absolutely the way to go. This was like a 17-hour print just to get this out of it, so that's something you could laser cut in like 5 minutes. But I really wanted like the plastic aesthetic. It was an aesthetic choice. So
It's very
sort of
beautiful.
thank you. I'm paying for it, I think, quite literally. Other projects. I have a follow-up to the board I was talking about the other week, our last show and tell. I was attempting to redesign or design in Eagle a control platform for a really common LED control circuit that I'm always build for any kind of lighting project I'm doing. Generally, it's a Arduino soldered to either a solderable breadboard or just on a breadboard itself, and all the connections cobbled together. And generally, I'm running a ton of LEDs, which means power gets really tricky. You're running a lot of amperage to run like 200 or 300 LEDs or more. The big LED case in the hall, I think, is 2,142 LEDs. So as you can imagine, that has a huge amperage draw requirement. And with amperage draw, it requires thicker wires. You need more thicker gauge wire to actually pull that kind of current. And that can be really tricky if you're trying to power a circuit board, which typically has really tiny traces. So that was sort of the design challenge to actually get in there and get it to work. So I'm going to pull up on my screen now the uh, the Eagle file somewhere around here. One of these screens has this. Okay. Boom. So here it is. This is the actual final schematic for this little LED controller board. It's designed to hold a LED nano. It has a pad for power in, so the nano runs off of 5 volts, and so do the NeoPixel LEDs that are all addressable. And I wanted this board to have a 10 amp max current that could run through it, so you could run a lot of LEDs and not worry. So it's coming in on the side of the board. These huge traces that run out, those are essentially the power buses or the power nets. They go to the 5 volt and ground for 2 LED strips, which can be individually addressed. And I also have 2 push button switches. Now, that kind of leaves the rest of the Arduino Nano relatively unused, but this could be solved by just putting stackable headers on top of the Nano to essentially open up all of those different buttons if you wanted to add extra functionality. So I designed this board. Um, here's the schematic, which is really embarrassing looking. I'm sure there's some real electronics experts out there who were probably looking at this and being like, why does it look so bad? Well, that's because I did this in a single night and I didn't have time. That was the challenge. But generally in Eagle, you draw your schematic first, and after you have your schematic with all connections done, that's when you get to this fun drawing phase where you're actually drawing out the traces. And then you get to a point where you can set it up for manufacturing. So I chose to use Elecro, which was the company that Keith suggested for all the boards that he was using. So that's a company in China. They have kind of specific CAM output. So that's like the machining portions of things, and they give you a file that you can load into Eagle to essentially make sure that you give them all the right file formats. So on here, this gives you a preview of essentially the board, be able to see where the traces are going to be, where the solder points are, the holes that I drilled, and I intentionally left notes on this saying this is dimensions of 54 by 48 millimeters, and here's the exact hole spacing. So in the future, when I'm doing like a laser cut or 3D printed enclosure, I can look at the board and be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I can get the hole spacing done that way. Like this little like future proofing this. And you can preview the top side and the bottom side just to see how this thing is going to look. So I took this, I uploaded it. It was a process of just uploading the files. There was no real preview on their website. You just got to pick what color you wanted the boards and what thickness of things would be, and some general options for shipping. And a week later, I got my boards back, which is fantastic. So
Oh
this
my
is
goodness. That's
my first.
amazing. Wait. We need to look at you.
Oh, yeah. There we
Go
go.
ahead. Yeah.
There it is. So there is the first
Oh, it's so
printed circuit board.
pretty.
Very, very satisfying object to hold.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's one of those inspiring moments that once again, I feel like the barrier to entry is just kind of like putting a little bit of time in and playing with it. Like I by no means an expert in doing this kind of design in Eagle. Like I'm just like a dabbler. Like I've played with it a bit to run some files on our other mill, but I've never made like a purpose built circuit for manufacturing. So some YouTubing. I asked some questions on the Adafruit Discord. I talked to people on the Arduino Discord just to like double check a couple things that I was really confused by. And I definitely had those moments where, it's like something was not working at all on Eagle. Like the connections weren't meeting up, or nothing was making the type of nets I was hoping to see. And then the instant that I ask somebody on the internet, that's when it's solved. So that happens to us too. Like I know folks have had that experience of asking us in the space, hey, why doesn't this sewing machine like do this thing? And we look at it and then suddenly it starts working again. This happens to everyone. I'm sure there's a German word for it, but it's like a fact of life at all levels of this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like sometimes it's hard to even like understand how to create the context for your question when you're new, and just showing something or talking to an expert takes so much time out of like just Googling and not finding the right thing because you don't know the right words. And
Yes.
sometimes as you know, an expert in a few things, there's things that are out there that are just wrong or misleading, or I feel like so much of tech help can be almost not intentionally, I guess, but like it's hard to get past. There's a lot of words and a lot of assumed knowledge. I just think that like having access to that, being able to ask those questions to those Discord channels is like really key.
It helps so much, and it's really interesting too. I mean, I have moments myself where I find that I just don't know anything about a subject and I'm struggling to come up with the terminology for a thing, and you find myself in Google and I'm like, how to make connector go ground, and then it's like the next that doesn't yield any results. It's like, I want to make the connector direct ground, like any
Yeah.
combination of those, just like constant like queries just to see if you can get any kind of like legible result from that. Like that is so much of the process is really just being able to ask the right question. I feel like
Yes.
the more experience you get with the thing, suddenly the questions become easier to ask. So those like little bits of nuance and knowledge are easier to come by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was this process. So, and I actually got it soldered up. I have the example. This is the the example board all set up. It looks chaotic. This is not how something would be actually assembled in a final product, but I really just wanted to make sure that I got light strips on this thing and some buttons going. So I have a really simple program on here that just cycles colors on a button press. This little momentary thing.
Nice. So you just have a
So
couple of pre-selected colors?
yeah, it just runs like red, green, and blue and off right now. But you can
Mm-hmm.
you can set this up with any kind of NeoPixel program you want. I just wanted that push button functionality because there's a lot of times when you're setting up a lighting project and you really just like want an off button or you want like a cycle button just to get through things. And I felt that was the easiest way to implement that functionality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. So, what is your inspiration? Like, are you just playing around with learning how to manufacture boards, or?
Now, yeah, I mean, like I'm pretty stoked about actually taking some of the projects that we've done uh, and building some just example like solder boards for that. I thought it would be really interesting to have essentially our own solderable breadboard and then also the circuit board version of it. So you could say like build it from scratch, build it from a circuit board, like feel out how these two types of processes work. Uh, and maybe some tackle some of the other really common projects that we have. I was thinking about the Yagi antennas that we did for Space Camp last year, and how fun that would be to just have all of that be built onto a circuit board. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there is a real value in building that thing out on a breadboard, but if you have like
Mm-hmm.
the final product version of it, it
Mm-hmm.
would be really cool to say all the connections are set. You just need to get the things plugged in and soldered into place, and things
Right.
should be working.
Right.
And products like the Arduino Nano, with this tiny footprint,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's it's awesome that you can just solder it right to the board. And I actually had I put some headers on here so I could actually take this thing off and use it for another project. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's visible.
Yeah. I kind of thought that was what was going
Whoop.
on, but
Yeah.
yep.
So if I want to recycle this Arduino, I can. So that's really awesome for these types of educational projects, just essentially making that available for whatever purpose-built thing that you're up to.
That's cool.
Yeah, fun stuff. Fun with electricity.
Yeah.
Um, what else is new? What else we got going on? What are you up to?
So, last episode, I was talking about the possibility of adding a new species to the little farm here. For those of you who maybe don't know, I just live in a neighborhood in Lafayette, and we got chickens about a year ago. You do need to fill out a license to have chickens. You have to like put together kind of a schematic of where their coop is going to be, and then pay $30 for the license and fill it out. And someone says, "Cool, looks good," and then you're allowed to have chickens. So that was kind of my gateway farm animal. And subsequently, I also got rabbits not too long ago. Those do not require a license as long as you have 3 or less. And then I was really curious about goats. So we went to go meet a few goats. We looked on Craigslist for some goats, and you can find so many different things on Craigslist. And we just really fell in love with these two goats that were from the same farm. You need to have two, and you need to fill out a license, and there's some requirements about keeping goats in this neighborhood. So I was pretty sure we were going to get goats, so I went ahead and did it beforehand. And the day that we were like, we're going to go visit these goats, Dan from Lafayette called me. He is in charge of going through licenses and making sure people are kind of aware of what you should do with animals. And he was like, "So, you got those goats yet?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you like?" He was like, "It's not entrapment. It's not entrapment. It's not entrapment."
That sounds like a like tacit approval of
And I
the
was
ownership
like,
of goats to me.
"You are trouble, sir. You are trouble." So I was like, "No, I actually don't have the goats yet, but we might have them today." So, like, in all honesty, like, I would really love it if you were like super cool. And if it's not cool, then I will try to keep that in mind while I'm looking at super cute goats. But he was like, "No, no, it's totally fine. I just wanted to call." And, since a lot of offices aren't open, I had to email it in, which wasn't really like normal, instead of like going in and just having the approval basically done. So he was really helpful, and he was like, "Yeah, whatever, you're good to go. Your schematic looks great." So we got goats, and they're so cute. And oh my gosh, I was hanging out in the backyard all day today, and all they wanted to do was lay down right next to me. It was
Good
amazing.
buddies.
I was like, "Oh my god, these are my emotional support goats. I'm gonna get them vests, and I'm taking them everywhere." I mean, I think I'm joking, but I'm not sure because they are very convincing that they need to be with me at all times. Um, but I thought I'd share a couple of pictures, and then I'll show you also what the license looks like and what they're expecting. If you are interested in filling out the chicken license or the beekeeping license, we also filled out a beekeeping license.
Oh, I
And
didn't realize there was a license for beekeeping as well. That's cool.
yeah. So the licensed animals that you can get in Lafayette, as long as you like can keep them in not a space that is shared with other and like people who might co-own that space. So like maybe apartment complexes you can't do it or something like that. But if you do have your own like little bit of property that's only for you, and the land person, the person who owns that property is okay with it, and I might not be getting the correct words, definitely look it up, then you can get a license for chickens up to 6, no roosters. Potbelly
What?
pigs.
That's where the fun is. Just like waking up first thing in the morning or in the
No,
middle of the night.
I was like, how would I ever have a rooster? I was like, okay, maybe if I put him to bed in a padded cell, like he would have a soundproof room and he can scream all night. Because I have been in places where there's roosters, and it is not only at 6 in the morning. It's at 3
No,
in the
it's all the
morning.
time.
It's at 2
It's
in the
all the
morning.
time.
It's at midnight. It's like at 3 a.m. Yeah, it's like all the time. So yeah, I mean, I'm like, yeah, sure. I guess if there's no one nearby who works like the night shift or something, you can talk all day. But at night, you're going to your padded cell. But they're illegal, so I'm not going to do that. So you can have up to 6 chickens, no roosters. You can have, you have to have either 0 goats or 2 goats. You cannot have 1, you cannot have 3. You can have baby goats up to a certain age because most of the goats that, the purpose would be like milking, and to get a goat to be able to produce milk, then they're going to have a baby or 5. I don't know, however many you get. So you are allowed to have like really young goats while they're still nursing, etc. And then you have to figure out what to do with them. Give them to your friends, obviously. um, And then you can also
Get
have,
your friends to fill out the paperwork.
yeah, I'm like, it's really easy. I'll show you how to do it on my show. You can also have 2 potbelly pigs. We do not have that. And you can also have bees. So those are separate licenses. And according to Luke, I don't know what he was thinking when he told me. He was like, "Oh yeah, you can have goats and pigs. You can have up to 10, 6 chickens, 2 goats, 2 potbelly pigs." And I was
Wow.
like, "Sir, do you know who you're talking to? You are tempting fate." But I don't think
So
I don't know. I mean, don't take me to go see pigs because I might be like, you know what? I know how to
no,
do it. The license is not hard.
nothing's off the table.
I know. I'm like, let's try it. I mean, if we decide that it's too much, like Craigslist, it's right
I'm
there.
so curious about the the decision making that went into saying like this is the law, like up to 10 animals. Like, was there like a precedent set? Did somebody just have way too many and they're like, this is a reasonable amount?
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm like so excited because like if you think of like chickens and goats and like you can have a little garden. I mean, that is like so much of like nutritional like needs, even if you're just learning. I mean, chickens lay about an egg every 26 hours. So with 6 chickens, you can have 5 to 6 eggs a day. That's amazing.
That
In
is
the summer.
amazing.
In the summer. I mean, unless you have lights, there are ways to like trick chickens into laying in the winter. We don't do that. Some people think it's good for them to have a rest. Honestly, that sounds
Hmm.
like a really good thing for chickens, I guess. I'm like, yeah, rest
Um,
rest sounds good. Um, supposedly they may lay
yeah.
longer. I don't know. I haven't put any lights in their space. I'm like, have a rest. We can get eggs.
Yes.
We know how to get more if we need to, I guess. But it's
Right.
really, to
We
me,
haven't
it's
quite
about,
approached end times yet where it's like we need the
yeah,
eggs, chickens.
yeah. I mean, supposedly lights. There's some kind of lights. End times, we might put some lights in there. Maybe in a month or two. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to just learn a little bit more about like what chickens are really like and what they do want out of life, which is a really weird thing to say. Really, they want to chase grasshoppers and maybe stand on chairs that they're not supposed to. They're a little naughty. Um,
Get under
and
the
what?
deck and lay like 1,000 eggs.
Oh yeah, yeah. Get under the deck and lay 28. Was it 28? 20? I don't know. It was way too many. There was a rogue chicken who, yeah, she just was gonna have a nest under there. Um, and also, and I learned about like how do you have baby chicks? Well, you have to have a giant pile of eggs, and then the chicken's like, all right, this is enough investment where I'm gonna sit on these eggs all day and not maybe chase grasshoppers. Like, so you can't really hatch one egg.
Oh, wow.
You like, I mean, you could if you had an incubator, but like if you want your chickens to lay them, you might have to like purchase a lot of fertilized eggs or purchase some fake eggs that look really legit and be like, here's all your eggs. Um, so
I
yeah,
don't remember these. Oh, well. I
yeah,
guess I'll bring them to
they
Baby
seem
Chick.
legit. Yeah. So I don't know, just learning little things about that and understanding a little bit more about where our food comes from and like how I feel like it's just getting closer to nature. And I know that like domestic animals are not wild animals, but it's just a little bit closer, and it's learning a little bit more about um, how this planet works and how we as humans exist here. I don't know. It's really
It's
I find it fascinating.
another means of seeing the Matrix, just being able to like understand the underpinnings of yet another facet of our world. There's so much that we're born into this world with zero knowledge, so we got to learn everything, and so a lot of it is magic. Where does food come from?
Yes.
Magic. I would say probably for 95% 5% of people. Maybe that's a
Mhm.
generalization. I know for me it's magic, but I could tell you all about 3D printing now, but
Yeah. And I feel like, with um the newer laws saying like, yes, you can have chickens in your neighborhood. We're moving back towards a deeper understanding of like food and animals, et cetera. But like for so long, in neighborhoods and still with HOAs, et cetera, you aren't allowed to really have access to animals that do provide back for you. Because if you think about any domesticated animal, there's always a transaction there. Like any domesticated animal, cows, milk, cats protect your grain. Um, Cats protect grain that is in your stores or in your animal stores. That's a really big deal, especially with some of the diseases that some. I know that that's not always 100% true, but like a lot of diseases can be easily carried by um, mice, et cetera, because they're like for some reason they're sort of similar to us, which is kind of wild. Um, Dogs have so many different amazing jobs, but all of these domesticated animals have like very intimate connections and transactional behaviors with us. That's how domestication happens. So it's really interesting to learn more about this. That's really what I've been doing a lot of. Um, so I have some pictures of, uh, yeah. I could talk
yeah,
about this
let's
forever, but
without
yeah.
further ado, let's see some critters.
Okay. Let's see. Let me get some pictures loaded.
I'm really excited to see these goats. It's such a wild thing.
It is wild. Let's see. This is a little bit out of order, but let me see if I can um, share this. It's weird because there's some that are movies and some and my computer's like, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, we'll just wing it. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna change the way I'm gonna do this. Okay. Apologies for the delay.
Stream world, you know?
I know. I know.
I'm always just like, where is it? I don't know.
Yeah. So this is a craisin, and this is a very special hand-pollinated Black Beauty zucchini squash that I had to tape close both the female and the male flowers, and then take the male flower and hand pollinate that female flower once it was ready, and then I had to tape it closed again. So this was a very special zucchini that I am still hoping to share these seeds with. So when you want to do seed saving for winter or summer squash, you need to hand pollinate those, and there's like tape and timing and everything involved. And my chickens were like, well, this is delicious. So they were a little
Oh
bit in
no.
trouble. Yes.
Oh no. I was kind of
Uh,
like, it seems like you went through a lot of trouble for the chicken to just
I
get a feast.
certainly did. But this is about as far as they got, because as you can see, I was taking a picture of this is craisin in the foreground. There's craisin and raisin. This is craisin, and I saved the rest of it, and it is currently um, being stored, and I'm going to try to continue to harvest seeds from them. I'm hoping to get a squash, beans, and corn seed exchange going. So
Excellent.
let's see what's going on here. Oh, this is Dellinger. This is our sweet gentleman, gentleman bun.
So fuzz.
He is super happy, not afraid of the dog at all. Our dog is understands that all of these sweet little creatures are under her watchful eye. She is not allowed to. They're her herd. But he's a very happy bun. He's very cuddly. So there's one of our bunnies. And here are our little new ladies. This is Ciel and Miel. So Ciel has the sky-colored eyes, and Miel has the honey-colored eyes. They are so sweet.
They're beautiful.
Whoa! Yeah, they're one's a little bit smaller and one's a little bit bigger. Miel is 5 months old. Ciel is 6 months old. It looks like they're smiling like all the time. Like anytime
they're so happy, or they're up to something.
Yes, both. And here is a lovely video that our dear friend of the space, Cassie, got today. Very silly little creatures.
Oh, I don't know if it's loading. I'm not sure we can see it.
Oh, it might be my internet. I'll play it again. Can you see it yet?
No. Dang.
Bummer. Am I frozen?
No. I mean, like, stuff seems like it's moving around, but yeah, I don't know.
I'll try that one more time. Let's see.
Now you're mentioning that that ghosts needed to have like a playground or like a hide and seek, like obstacle course, like that's like part of their desired. Oh, there we go. Nice.
It's probably very tiny, but so yeah. When you're designing your goat paddock, you want to have quite a bit of area for each goat for them to like run around and play in. And I have read that the ideal sort of landscape for them, first of all, they will jump on stuff. So nothing too close to your neighbor's fence. But you want to create like the ultimate like kids hide and seek playground is like kind of like ideally what you're looking for. They are very curious. They will try to push things open. They will climb on top of stuff. They will look around. If you're out in the yard, they're going to be extra curious and be like, can I get out here? How about over here? How about over here? I have to be with you. So like sometimes I'll like go outside and they like start pushing on the gate and I'm like, that gate's not secure. And so I'll like run back inside and like look through the blinds and wait for them to calm down. Yeah. But yeah,
testing
so
the perimeter.
have to, like, yes, they are. You do have to think about your gate security and like where you think that they might be able to get through and just like be mindful of how much attention and how much they're testing each of those areas and definitely address those in turn. But let me show you, let me see if I can show this to you as well. Oh, that's not what it was. Here in the background, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you can see in this background, we have something called T-posts or star posts that have been put into the ground. And then these are called cattle panels. Cattle panels are one of the more affordable panels. There's a lot of different kinds with a bunch of different spacing in between them. But cattle panels are really affordable and they're pretty good for most projects. And I need
so that's a type of fencing then, like
yeah,
is that what that is?
yeah, and this cattle panels that I have are about 50 inches tall, so about 4 feet, And there's actually a couple of narrow bands at the bottom, which isn't super helpful for me in my with goats and chickens. I will probably put some wire on the bottom if I want to have the chickens be in that yard as well. But you can see there's some chickens in the background and the chicken coop in the background. But so these cattle panels are 4 feet tall and 16 feet long. And so I have 2 cattle panels in the background, one coming away from the fence and then one perpendicular going across the screen. And then there was one that I just needed to cut here with that angle grinder for the gate.
Awesome. So cool.
Sorry.
We do. I hope for at some point we get to do some metal stuff at 61. That's something that we really wanted to do since the inception of this thing, but we just ran out of space. But there's so much like that you can get done with just a handful of metalworking tools.
Yes. And if you've ever used a Dremel, an angle grinder is basically like a giant Dremel. So they're really
massive cutoff wheel.
Yeah. I mean, it's at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a giant power tool, and like this is what they use in all the movies to like throw sparks and all those like super industrial scenes, and like, oh my goodness. But it's really just like a big Dremel. And so it's super fun to use. And if you're gonna try to get that shot where you look totally awesome, maybe a little bit darker of a scene is what you're looking for. I should probably do another project using it so that I can like really adjust the lighting and get that perfect look.
Yeah, like that night shot with spark wheel.
Yes, yes. So here I'm just going to show you real quick a couple other things. Let's see. Here is sort of the schematics that I included with my license for the goats and for the bees. You kind of just want to like think about what the restrictions are. So we had a area restriction for the proposed shelter, and we had a distance restriction from the neighbors. So we made that really clear. But really, this is the schematic that I use, and I just did this in Adobe Illustrator. Here's the one for the bees, and this is kind of what that looks like. This is the miniature goat one, and potbelly pigs. Which I guess I can have one potbelly pig. I don't really know. That's not going to happen though, not this year. But you can see that you need a shelter, and it can't be more than 100 square feet, etc. And then there's that drawing. So it's not too scary to fill this out. It's totally within your realm. The other thing that I've done recently is I made some little bunny really cold weather shelters. So this is for Fulla. These are laser cut and just glued together. If you ever want to make a box, as Adam was saying, one of my favorite places to go is makeabox.io. And you just put in the width, height, and depth and the thickness of the material you're cutting, and it basically outputs the basic design for you, and then you can sort of tweak it from there. So let me show you that that little shelter again. You can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides instead of the 6. So on these bottom 4 sides that did have these notches cut in them, I just made that a straight line. I just cut those notches off.
And that's got to be helpful for when you need to get in there and clean out all the rabbit poops.
Yes, it's so that they can continue to poop through the wire, and I don't have to continually clean these things. So it's like, yeah, It's like kind of a self-cleaning.
Yes.
I just put them over something that needs to be fertilized, and they just fertilize away.
Excellent.
Yeah, so those are those.
How long do you think it took to cut that file?
Oh my gosh, I don't. It was not very long, and most of it was the etching.
Yeah. My guess, just looking at it, probably like 7 minutes in cutting. That's my guess for the 1/4 inch
Yeah,
material on the 75 watt.
I was like, was it 5? Is that
Yeah.
nuts? Like, yeah, it was
Yeah.
not very long.
The etching probably doubled that amount of time, but again, like this thing, 3D printed box, like 17 hours. You know,
Yeah, it's
not
a lot
worth it
longer.
when you can just laser cut 5 sides,
Yeah,
and probably just buy like a little piece of hardware for this handle thing.
yeah. So one thing that I did want to bring up is all of these designs that I talked about, like from actually designing the paddock with those 16-foot panels. I mapped out that back corner. I mapped out the shed. I drew in lines of those 16-foot panels, and I knew how long I needed that gate to be. Um, that was done two-dimensionally. That was done in Adobe Illustrator. The the proposed map for the beehives, the proposed map for the goat paddock with the proposed shelter, that was done in Illustrator. So much of my 3D design I do in Illustrator. But now I'm finding, so the next, there's a couple of projects that I have upcoming for the farm. Is I want to make a frame to put those rabbit hutches in that I've showed on previous episodes. They're just all wire hutches, which were really easy to design because they're cubes. They have all right angles. It's 3 by 3 by 18. It was really easy to order the wire and just clip it together. But now I'm starting to get a little bit more intense with my design. I want to design a hutch that can easily shed snow. I've worked on it with paper. Like, I have so many scribbles. I've worked on it in Illustrator, but now I'm feeling like I really do need to move to a solid 3D, more of a CAD type program that I can really put in these dimensions, put in the size of the lumber, and be able to turn it and see what the shape is really like. So Adam, I know that you have a lot of experience with 3D modeling. What are your favorite tools to design things in 3D?
I have many. This is one of those things where it's difficult to pick. Like, I mean, I'm sure like musicians may have trouble picking their favorite instrument, or if you're a woodworker, you probably have difficulty choosing your favorite wood. Very similar with 3D modeling software, because they're so multi-purposed, and different modeling software has different specialties. There's like 4 that I use regularly. But for doing the type of project that you're talking about, I really love SketchUp. So SketchUp has a free version. It also has a professional version. And I can share my screen to show you kind of what I'm up to recently in SketchUp. So let's add this up here. All right, so here we go. So these are 2 projects in SketchUp. Probably remember this from a couple weeks ago, where I was talking about my office build out, and some of you may have noticed how nice my background is looking these days.
The lighting is very good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this, hold on, maybe I can get it to somewhat match my background. The camera in my room is facing this direction right now. So this is looking exactly where we are if I was to turn and face this corner. Like that's what's going on. So I have very I took all of my measurements by hand of my upstairs office, and then in SketchUp I just started drawing planes. So if you're familiar with Illustrator, this works very similarly. You just get to add a Z dimension to things. So it's as simple as going ahead and picking a rectangle tool, drawing it out on a plane. And then if you look in the very bottom right-hand corner, it's probably very difficult to see here, and say make component. And I'll say tabletop. And I say okay. And now this is one group that when I go to the move tool, I can just move it around as needed. And you can also move things in exact dimensions as well. So if I wanted to move this thing upward and I needed to say, I knew exactly it was, say, like 50 centimeters off the ground, I could type in 50 and it just pops up into place.
Yes. And so then you can be like, oh, how long of a leg do I need?
Yep. Yes, exactly. And then I can copy this. So there's
because of the thickness of my material. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So I can copy this. If I hold down Control or I tap Control, you see that this changes to like a little plus on the cursor. It's probably hard to see on the stream, but you can duplicate things out. Now, if this component needed to be changed, like I needed to push in one of these sides, I could double click on it, and that enters kind of an isolation mode where I'm only affecting this component. You see it's got like a little bounding box around it. So maybe maybe this tabletop is actually slightly thicker. We can just raise that up, and it's going to do all of them all at once.
Yes.
So super cool process. And if anyone's using like just like dimensioned lumber, like I did when I first started this process, I went to Home Depot and I measured every single piece of pine that they had available because I had no means of milling my own stuff. So I created components for all of the base boards that existed and said, okay, I know that these boards are this length, so I can just have like a little palette of them at my disposal.
So I see there's lots of like rectangular shapes in there. Like if you were gonna make, I don't know, a goat pentagon. Like I have been doing so much trigonometry. Like I really thought I was never gonna use that, but I was wrong. Yeah, SOHCAHTOA.
Yep. Yes, it's always a surprise. I was terrible in math. I will admit that I only got as far as geometry in high school. So I know you kids out there can do better than me, but you know, just know that like if you put your mind to it, you can figure some stuff out.
Yeah. So how about them pentagons and triangles?
So with more complicated shapes, it does get tricky. So you can draw things at angles. So I spend a lot of time if I have like a tricky shape, for instance, like maybe we want to like draw some angles. I'll actually use the measuring tool and just start saying like, well, this corner needs to be chamfered a certain amount. So I'll say like 13 and maybe 18 this way. Then I can just go in with the line tool, hit those two edges, and just draw it in. So it's a more manual process, I find, in this piece of software than others.
Right.
But it's still extremely, extremely useful for doing this kind of layout work. It is really helpful. So I'm going to go to oops. I'm going to go back to my other file here. Yeah, this is the totally free version, and you can get a lot done in it, which is great. The professional version gives you all kinds of like styling and like texturing and other layout tools. This is a bunch of tests for things that would go on top of the desk. So back behind me here, this is a monitor riser. So I wanted to spec out exactly how big that was going to be. And then also these little speaker risers. I had original idea was saying like maybe I want it to be like 3 of these little pipe posts. So I got all the dimensions on those, drew it out, and then just started playing with it. Like I just was like looking at like different ideas. And if you ever have a component, like let's say like a I think this whole base is probably a component right now. You can actually make these things unique. So if I was double clicking on this, it was going to affect everything that's kind of around it. But if I right click on it and say make unique, now it's not going to affect this other one. So you can kind of make like new instances on the fly. So this is generally what I find, what I use SketchUp for a lot. If I'm doing any large scale like construction projects, this helps me visualize what I'm doing with so much ease.
And this is a web app?
Yep, this is the web version.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all there. It used to be a download. I think that I'm not sure if there's a free download version of SketchUp anymore. There used to be. So folks who have older versions of it, that's still a thing, I think. But really, like, yeah, you can just do this online. And if you have older SketchUp files, you can just load them into this and use them.
That's great.
So this is really, really useful for this kind of thing. I find with 3D printing, you have to be extra careful. It's really easy to have an object that's missing some tiny edge involved. So like you might have a model and it's just has a hole in the bottom like that.
Okay. Yep.
That would not 3D print. So
okay.
The more complicated your model gets, the more facets you have, like the more detail, the more you have to be kind of cautious about what's happening there. And you also kind of can get strange results if you have intersecting faces. So if you have like two boxes on top of each other. Let's just draw something real quick here. Whoa. Right? Looks okay. But in reality, if we go inside the box, if it will let me, there are intersecting. Oh, wait, no, it didn't. Oh, that's cool. Wait a minute, SketchUp. This is unexpected.
Did they squash a bug?
Maybe. I mean, I
or
think
did they
it used to
squash
be
a feature?
intentional. This is actually super handy because these faces normally they would essentially, you'd see like a box inside of a box, and
Yes,
3D modeling software would sometimes say like, I'm not sure what's inside and what's outside, I'll just make it up, which can be problematic. But
I could see how that would happen. Yeah,
this did a really great job. Like I'm stoked that worked the way that it did. So I guess you can ignore me. SketchUp is getting better all the time. Nice job, SketchUp.
That's great. I'm really excited to play with that.
Yeah, some really good stuff there. Other software that I really like for doing 3D models, one of my favorites is Sculptress. This is another free piece of software. This is by the folks who do ZBrush, which if you're familiar with any video game or feature-length movie or anything that has a 3D modeled character in it, this is the technology that does this. This is essentially a more artistic sculptural program. Generally, you have a stylus. So my whole screen that I'm working on here is a stylus. And I have a little Wacom pen here. Whoop. It has a little tip here that it can essentially, it has levels of sensitivity on the screen. So when I go to actually sculpt on this, can see that this whole model is changing.
Is there bilateral symmetry being enforced?
There is on this. So the free version has bilateral symmetry. The full ZBrush piece of software, you can add symmetry to anywhere. So you can have things quadded out. You can have symmetry on various different parts of the model. It is a spectacular piece of software. And some of the things that you can do with ZBrush, you can make a sculpt of, say, like you wanted to do like a chain link. You could sculpt the chain length and like create a special sculpting tool that when you create a stroke on the screen, it will actually draw the whole chain link as like a manifold object that you could then 3D print, say, which is really, really, really cool. So sculpted toys and things like that, like amazing kind of results from that, from this kind of thing. So this is all just like digitally based, sculpting methods. So I don't know, get like a creature like pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm already seeing a creature. That's amazing. What?
Right, like it was like a turtle or something like that.
Oh my goodness, that's wild.
Yeah, so super cool for doing any kind of like thing that you would think that you'd be doing in traditional clay or something like that. You could be doing in Sculptress. This is totally free to try out. You can produce some pretty amazing stuff from it. This was just like a few moments in, and we already have like the basis of a creature. And if you look on YouTube, you'll be shocked. Like there's some really cool stuff out there that people are making.
That's great.
So this is a fun one. I always endorse Tinkercad to folks. So that is just at tinkercad.com. And this is really good piece of software, especially for people who are not necessarily like, I don't know, computer experts, like kids. They're just starting out, right? They're just getting into this. But you can come into this and it is so user-friendly. You are just making primitive objects. You can merge them. You can set scale on stuff. So it's just like playing with blocks in 3D. And so this is a very fast way to get things going without having to think about any kind of measuring. Like if you're like a total newcomer to this world and you just want to like build something, this is so intuitive because you're just moving things around in space and trying to get it to line up. And even if objects aren't merged, Tinkercad is super forgiving on the export. It just merges everything for you. So 3D printing it is really simple. It also has an amazing classroom function. So for teachers who are using this type of thing, they can see all of their students' files. Like they can join like a classroom. It's very much designed for that kind of educational experience. And it's got great tutorials built in as well. And I shouldn't say it's like too simple. You can actually produce some pretty amazing complex stuff out of this. So there's some imported things here, but let's see if we got something cool. Oh yeah, let's look at this. This is a cookie cutter. I helped a patron with. Feels like a million years ago, but I think it was just in February. Yeah, so this is like a little this is for making dog cookies, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I remember that. Cool. Yes.
So and it had this requirement of needing essentially like a shorter area and a taller area, so the dough would release evenly between things. So with this, the way that we got this pig shape is we had a drawing in Adobe Illustrator, exported that as an SVG and just loaded it in, and from there you can extrude the face, just like similar to what I was showing with SketchUp earlier, just to get that shape made. It was not a perfect file, so there's like some weird little I don't know what's going on down there, but you get the idea. You can create some pretty functional, useful things in the software, and it's super handy if you just need to like make some really simplistic shape, like the collars that I use to hold the water bottles for laser cutting. I did that in Tinkercad. I just was like, okay, I need like a cylinder, and it's got to be some size, and then I need another cylinder, and this is like not right, but oops, I need it to like be a hole.
Yep.
And like you're like boom, done, right? I mean, like so fast. Like obviously that's like this was, I don't know what this would be useful for, but again, like you just dragging primitive shapes onto the workspace here, you get functional things very, very quickly. Other software that I really like, I love Autodesk Fusion 360, which I believe still has a student version. And this is so useful for creating complicated mechanical parts, like things that have very tight tolerances or things that need to fit specific variances, and you need to be able to modify parameters. They would call this a parametric modeling program, and what that means is that you can actually create like a little spreadsheet of parameters with values. So you could say, I want all my wall thicknesses to be 3 millimeters, and that just value is in the spreadsheet, so that when you're drawing something and it says, what do you want the wall thickness to be? You can just type in the parameter wall, and it knows what that value is. And if that value changes, you just change it in the spreadsheet, and everything updates on the fly. Just super cool. So here's 4 files that I generated really recently. I built new vents for my air conditioner. I'm doing some venting for my 3D printer and my air conditioner and my airbrush that are going to go out the window, and I wanted to get these things built. So this is, whoops. Yep, this is the air conditioner vent, which I'm just going to go take it off the back of my air conditioner because it's not plugged in right now because it's cold. Fight it off this thing. There it is. So that's actual 3D printed functional part that already has dust on it because air conditioners. But the way this type of program works, I'll actually go to a much simpler file here, is you start out by just drawing sketches. And let's see, turn off the bodies, turn on the sketch. And so you draw a 2D plane. So this software can be tricky. You have to have like a little bit of forethought for how you're going to start creating the model. So for me, I started out with, this is the base.
Right.
I know that I'm going to have holes, and I'm going to have like a circle here. So these, let's see, I'm going to go into the sketch, and you actually draw dimensions on things. And let's see, I think I did this one. No, it's in millimeters. All like air conditioning and venting stuff in the US is in inches. So like I was really struggling. I just ended up doing it in inches. So I broke my own rule here. So that's why all the millimeter dimensions, I changed it to millimeters afterward because you have to 3D print in millimeters. You don't have a choice there.
Okay.
But that's why it's like 104.775. That's like exactly like 4.5 inches or something like that. But if whoops. No. Sorry, I don't know if my screen just blanked out there, but if I wanted to make this hole a different size, I could say maybe make this like 2 inches. It's a 2-inch vent, right? Oops. 2 by n. That changes. And then if I go, what would happen next is, now that I've got the sketch done, I would finish the sketch, and then I'd start extruding stuff.
So how do you select? So all of those shapes are listed?
Yeah, so each of these is like a little plane that's available to work with. So I'm gonna try to step back through. Oops, I have bodies hidden. Okay, hold on, backing up here. So the first thing I did, it has a timeline, so you can walk back through your process. Is I extruded this this post. I knew that was going to be the tube, and then I extruded the base up. And then I used a tool called Shell, which digs a hole through 2 faces.
Okay.
And after that, I can put fillets on things. So there's like a tool up here that you can just select an edge and like put a fillet of a certain radius on it, which I did again for the little corners.
Lovely.
and I did it once more to get these smooth little edges here. So this is really
at the
cool.
bottom of the tube.
Yep. Yeah. So just getting that like smooth
Yeah.
little edge there.
Yeah.
That's how I did it. And you can see how that looked. And this is not the 2-inch version of it because I changed that initial sketch. So I could go back in there if I wanted again and change this to something else. Maybe I say like 3.75 inches. And finish the sketch. And now that is updated on the fly with all of those edits still intact.
Oh my gosh. So it just like moves through the timeline with a new value.
Yep.
Damn.
Yes. Super cool way of changing things as you need them, because sometimes your measurements are wrong.
Yes.
Like, or maybe you need to make like a tiny adjustment and you're just like, oh, really?
Yep.
Like the air conditioning tube that came with the machine, it was like an abnormal vent size. Like it, like everything said 4-inch tube, but it was really like 4.25 or 2.3, which you can get no fittings for. So I was like, well, I just have to buy a separate tube and I have to come up with my own connector and get it going. So that's where Fusion 360 came in super handy, because I could make those checks and just see if it was going to work. And I got real lucky, on like these prints in terms of like the little like edge that's on the bottom here. Like that was the right width, but if I had gotten it wrong, I could just update the model and just print this thing over again and probably work. But now I have a fun little collection of these things that are ready to go, and it's handy for the future, right? I mean, like once you make one of these things, you might need it again later. So I've got all these things 3D printed now. So
nice.
Various caps and pieces. So basically saved, I don't know, a crazy amount of money. So to get this exact piece, like if I needed to buy the parts for this to essentially get things like vented down to the correct width, I would have had to spend, I think it was like $57 for this. And this is like $2 in filament and whatever that was in time to set up in Fusion 360. So super valid reason to use 3D printing.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I like having projects to where I learn a new software and learn a new technology, like just learning a little bit about like how did ducks work, like is enough. Like, I don't know. I really enjoy that process.
This is like, I don't know, it's definitely rewarding to have the quick turnaround on it too, to be like, I want to figure this out and I want to see if this works. And like being able to get that like immediate feedback is so helpful. Yeah,
that's great. I don't know. I just feel it makes everything a little more easy to understand,
Yeah, and you can see the value in things. Like it's easier to see the value in things once you've made it, and you start to try to evaluate like, is this thing really worth it in when I'm buying it off the shelf, or am I gonna save by building it myself? I mean, like almost never is the case that like you'll save a lot by just doing something yourself, because you'll invest a ton of time in figuring it out. But if you do invest that time, that's time invested in yourself. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, that's great.
But I think that's like my list of like top 3D software that I use for most things Maker. Also, there's lots of variant free versions of these things out there, like FreeCAD is another like computer aided modeling software. We have Rhino in the makerspace, which is awesome for architectural and modeling stuff like this. I don't have a lot of experience in that, but Zach has like a ton of experience in it, and it's a really cool program. It has tools that none of these other pieces of software have, so it might have a use case scenario that's better for a particular project. And then there is the world of video game 3D modeling software or visual effects modeling software. We touched on Sculptress and ZBrush a tiny bit, but you've got 3D Studio Max, Maya, a whole host of other types of 3D software that's more specific to animation and doing like simulated like fluid effects and graphics. Like if you wanted to like make an explosion with smoke effects and have it look totally real, you'd use one of those softwares to do that kind of thing. It's not necessarily something you could 3D print.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But
Thank you so much for that overview.
yeah, for sure. I love this stuff, and I could geek out about it endlessly. Could make cool parametric pipe structures for the rest of the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I was like literally up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about my pentagon for the goats and how high they needed to be in the middle and the sides, and using
Yep.
4x8 plywood, like what's the angle if it's 7 foot in the middle and 4 foot on the sides, and like I was just like, oh my god, go to sleep. And I was like, do I need to start sketching this out so I can go to bed now? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So good company. Good company.
Excellent. And then you just stay all the way up into the next day and start wondering.
Yeah. I was like, I have too many things to do. But tonight, SketchUp, and
Yes.
maybe this thing.
Synth time. Yeah, Emily and I both got new synthesizers, which I think we're really excited about. That's a whole nother thing. I just got this. I don't know if Robbie's still out there. We were just talking about this earlier, but it's the Arturia Mini Brute 2S. What? So we'll be making some music in the near future.
Yes, please.
Cool. Well, I've certainly rambled for a long time about 3D stuff. I don't know if there's anything else to cover this evening, so I think we can probably call it a night.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're hoping to see your faces again soon. Maybe virtual laser guided access, maybe virtual 3D guided access, and but we miss all of you. We miss seeing your faces, and it was really good to see a couple people this week. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Remember, if you've got cool projects and you want to just hang out with us here on the show, you're always welcome to join us. We want to talk about all things makery and nerdy and fun. So until next time, keep on making.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.